Welcome back to another episode of the Seattle Sports Show, where we love Seattle pro sports. I'm your host, Mikey, and today we are here to talk about Cooper Kupp coming home to Seattle. That is right. On Friday, March 14th, Cooper Kupp agreed to a deal with the Seattle Seahawks. 3 years, $45 million. Cooper Kupp is coming home. Alright, I mentioned the 3 years, $45 million. We all know that NFL contracts aren't really worth what the total value is reported. So he's not going to be $15 million a year against the cap. We don't know how much he's going to be against the cap in this first year, the second year, and the third year, because the details of the contract are out at this time. But we know what we're getting in the player, and we are getting an amazing player. Just remember, we are talking about a Pro Bowler, an All-Pro player, a Super Bowl champion, a Offensive Player of the Year player, a Super Bowl MVP player. That is what we are getting. And that year that he won the Offensive Player of the Year in 2021, just a few years ago, he had the triple crown of receivers, right? Led the league in yards, receptions, and touchdowns. We're just a few years removed from that. But we're also a few years removed from him having a completely healthy season. Since that 2021 season where he was the Offensive Player of the Year, he has missed at least a handful of games in each season. So if we do get a healthy Cooper Kupp, somebody who can last the entire season, then we are really getting something. Because again, this is a player over his career has just been really consistent. Let's see here. I mean, looking career stats. Let me pull him back up here. I lost him. But amazing stats through his entire career. Okay, we're looking at, let's see here, a player who has 634 receptions, 7,776 yards. The yards per game, 75 yards per game. Yards per reception, 12.3. And that's over the career. Yards after catch averages 5.7 yards after the catch. He's got 57 touchdowns in his career, to just one lost fumble in his entire career. Again, the last few years have been injury plagued, and he has missed some time, but hopefully that is something that is not going to happen this year. Because again, if you get a full year out of him, he produces when you don't get a full year out of him. Okay, listen to this. In 2024, in just 12 games, he had 67 receptions, 710 yards, 6 touchdowns, and that was good for a 10.6 yard per reception average. Okay, and his injury came kind of towards the beginning of the year. These are the stats after he came back after his injury, after the hamstring injury that he had. He came back after that, and the rest of the season, in the 8 games he played after he came back, 55 receptions, 610 yards, 5 touchdowns, and an 11.1 yard reception. Right? So those are good numbers right there alone, because DK Metcalf played in 15 games, okay? 3 more games, 66 receptions, 992 yards, 5 touchdowns. Okay, so in the season that DK Metcalf played, Cooper Kupp put up those same numbers in half a season at the same yards. The yards is the biggest difference, just like a 300 yard game difference, but it's also a 3 game difference. But otherwise Kupp was just like lapping him in production. Tyler Lockett, we also lost. A guy who is Mr. Available, right? That was his thing. He always available. Played 17 games, all 17 games, of course. 49 receptions, 600 yards, 2 touchdowns this year. That's the entire year. So again, in half a year, Cooper Kupp passed all those numbers. And again, the big thing to me is the yard after catch. That used to be a big Tyler Lockett thing, right? And I know some people had the sentiment out there where they saw the number that Cooper Kupp was signed for, and people were like, oh, well, why did we let Tyler Lockett go? Why didn't we just release him and then restructure the contract or sign him back to a different contract that would be, a better contract than what he had? Well, I just read the stats to you, and that's why. Tyler Lockett, still a good, reliable player, but they're trying to get better than that. And I know Cooper Kupp is old as well. He's only 1 year younger than Tyler Lockett. But he's not the same player as Tyler Lockett. He's not the same style. As a Seahawks fan, you know what you've been watching with Tyler Lockett the last handful of years. He makes the catch. He's not going for those yards after the catch anymore. He's often making the catch and going to the ground before he can get hit. And can you blame him? No. He wants to extend his career. He wants to play longer. He wants to be healthy after his career is over. And I don't blame him. He just had a child. He's thinking about that. But from the Seahawks' point of view, if they feel like Cooper Kupp is going to give them the chance to get back to the point where they can be trying to get those yards after the catch, then they got to try to do it. And Cooper Kupp, again, because he is, 31, he's not as fast as he once was, but I still think he's going to fit really well into this Clint Kubiak system. Okay, he's 6'2", 207 pounds is what they list him at. Again, he's another guy who his size is deceptive, right? He moves like a guy who is, one of the 5'10", 5'11" receivers. He's just not as fast as he once was, but his route running, his the way he attacks the defenders while running his route to get himself open, I think that really works. The other thing with Cooper Kupp is his football IQ, okay, and the fact that he's familiar with the type of system that they're going to be running here. He's going to come in. They're not going to have to, teach him, where do you run on your routes? When you're looking for the soft spots in these zones to get open against defenses, where you need to be on this play, he's going to have that knowledge already. And because he's going to have that knowledge already, he's going to be able to pass that on to the younger receivers. He's going to be able to pass that on to a JSN. Again, MVS also has familiarity with the system already, but he can always get better as well. He can learn from Cooper Kupp. If they draft a wide receiver at some point during this year's draft, they'll be there to help teach that guy. Again, he's here for the next 3 years. It's pretty cool to see. Born in Yakima, played at Eastern Washington, now gets to come end his career with the Seahawks. That's a pretty fun story for all the people who love the fun stories out there. All right, so I mean, in general, I am very excited about this. The one thing that we're all still worried about is the fact that we still have not signed an interior offensive lineman. We can look around at the team and see what they've done, and we say, hey, they are building an elite defense. They went out and got a cheaper, younger quarterback who still has a ton of upside. They, got rid of 2 wide receivers and saved, $60 million worth in cap space and go sign a guy for $15 million who still has a chance to be really productive. We still have our running backs. We still have an emerging tight end. AJ Barner is who I was thinking of that I couldn't remember the name of the other day. We just need that offensive line, the interior of that offensive line to get improved. The issue is they still haven't made a move to do that. Tonight, Mekhi Becton of the Eagles went and signed with the Chargers. No surprise there. We all know that Jim Harbaugh, he's gonna focus on building offensive and defensive lines. That's his whole thing, right? And that's why you always see quarterbacks that play for him have such great success, because he puts emphasis on building up offensive lines for his quarterback. I wish we would be doing that here right now. It doesn't seem to be the case. And we heard John Schneider on with Bob and Dave, and my fear came true, or it sounds like it's gonna be true. He really made it sound like, hey, we got some good players here. We're gonna be coaching them up. And again, if that's the only plan, I can't agree with that. I just don't think that's a good plan at all. I feel like they needed to get one really solid veteran to add to this line before the draft. You need to get at least one, because I know the tackles we have are good. Okay? If you get at least just because there's not an offensive line in the NFL out there that has 5 solid linemen on the offensive line, right? But you can try to have at least 4, all right, to really get this team over the top. Go sign, a solid free agent, so that way you feel like, hey, we have 3 good offensive linemen, we have 2 really good tackles, we would have a really good guard or center, whichever one they decided to go with. And then with one of your picks in the draft, you try to go get another really good guard or center, whichever one it is that you are going with, and the one that you didn't sign in free agency. Okay, so then you still have the chance to develop one of the other linemen at one of the other spots as well. But at this point, it's feeling like they're desperate, right? Like they're still at this point desperate for interior offensive linemen. And as much as John wants to talk about it, he's not going to sell me on, the guys we have are young and they're not done developing. They can still be coached up and they can get better. That's all well and true. Players can improve and get better. But I'd like to have one that I know is already good. Add one that is already good into the mix. So that way, again, you would have the 2 you already have are is good. Then you would get one more, so you at least would have 3 linemen that you feel like, okay, I know these guys are good. These guys are solid. That way you only have to rely on drafting 1 rookie. And then you only have to rely on one of the other offensive linemen that has not developed to this point, who has not been successful to this point that you drafted previously. Just one of them has to be one of the players that develop into a solid offensive lineman like you're hoping. Right now, they have 3 positions across the line where they're hoping guys will develop into being the guys they want to develop. Or they're hoping that the next guy that they draft in this draft is going to be that solid offensive lineman right away as a rookie to be on the line. That's not a good plan, and that's not making you a contender. The 49ers, they are falling apart. The Cardinals, we all know that organization. It ain't it. They hardly ever have it together. They've a couple times in their existence have they had it together. It's not a team that is consistently going for the playoffs and consistently contending for a Super Bowl. They were just lucky everything came together right a couple times, and then they go right back to being an organization that just makes mistake after mistake. The Rams, again, they're not getting back all the pieces that they had. They are aging. They have a few rookies that look like they could be outstanding, but I don't think they're a sure thing either, right? I mean, it came down to the 5th tiebreaker for them to get into the playoffs over us. Okay, so it's not like they were light years ahead of us. So with that in mind, with knowing what the rest of the division is facing, I feel like we have a great opportunity to go out and take the division, even with all the changes that seem like they're drastic, major changes. Your number one wide receiver, your quarterback, those two moves seemed like major changes, right? But with how elite they're building that defense and a lot of the other weapons that you still have, I feel like you can beat if you give yourself the chance to. And don't forget this, because of us not getting into the playoffs, we got one of the easier schedules. I'm going to look it up right now. Our opponents in 2025 have been set. Okay? And remember, we didn't make the playoffs because of tiebreakers. But that moved us further down the bracket. Right? So we're going up against other teams who, they are, they also finished second in theirs. So at home, we got the Cardinals, the Rams, the 49ers, of course, and then we got the Houston Texans, the Colts, the Saints, the Buccaneers, and the Vikings. On the road, of course, we will also go against the Cardinals, the Rams, and the 49ers, but we also have the Falcons, the Panthers, the Jaguars, the Titans, the Commanders, and the Steelers. Now listen to that list and tell me, how many of those teams do you think are contending? How many of those teams do you think are going to even be great or even good? Some of the teams on this list I think are going to be very bad next year. Some of the teams that we are going against outside of our own division, I believe are going to be really bad. And that's just the luck of the draw that we got for this upcoming season because of where we finished in the division. Those are the opponents that we get. If you give yourself a chance, give your quarterback the best opportunity that you can by giving him an offensive line, so that he can get the ball into the playmakers' hands and they can do their thing. I do believe Cooper Kupp, JSN, MVS, these players are all players that can make things happen after they get the ball in their hand. The quarterback just has to be able to do that, and you have to give the quarterback a chance. And I know we're going to say, but this system's an entirely different system. Under Ryan Grubb, we were passing over it, we were passing a majority of the time, 80-something% of the time, sometimes more than that, we were passing the ball. So we became very predictable to teams. They didn't even have to respect the run. The blocking schemes that he was running, they were very much leaving all these offensive linemen on islands, not giving them help at all. I know this new system with Clint Kubiak is going to be different. It is going to be, we will run the ball a lot more. We will have play action, so the other teams will have to respect that. We know that there will be bootlegs and getting the quarterback in motion and moving the pocket. We know that there'll be, help for the offensive linemen and not just leaving them on an island to block by themselves without, a plan to get help from another lineman or get a chip from a running back or a tight end. We know all that, but I would still feel better if we weren't just relying on players that we've seen with unproven track records to be the guys that do well in this system and improve all of a sudden this year and in this system. I'd like to get at least one before the draft to make you feel like we got the third guy and another veteran guy on the interior that could be a voice and a leader for the rest of that offensive line and kind of guide them. Just the way we have veterans at other positions, right? But I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's going to go that way. I mean, at this point, we're running out of good offensive linemen that you can sign in free agency that you can say that about. So I don't know. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a stressful. It's going to be a stressful group to think about how they're going to improve until we actually see them on the field and see them play. And we are either going to be really excited about how much this group has improved, and any rookies that get added in, how good they are right away, or we are going to be sorely disappointed that they didn't make any moves in free agency to improve the offensive line, as the players still just don't have the ability to play up to that level, and or also be disappointed with more offensive linemen, interior offensive linemen that get drafted that they just evaluate wrong once again and don't bring us a productive, functional offensive line. But we're getting towards the end here, and I don't want to end on that. No, I just want to end on the absolute excitement that I have about Cooper Kupp being a Seattle Seahawk and what he can bring here. So in the comments, let me know how you feel about that Cooper Kupp signing. Are you excited? You think he still has it? Are you excited to see what he can do with the ball in his hands after he makes the catch? Are you excited to see what he can do in that mid-range level, getting wide open and being an open target for Sam Darnold, and just being a savvy veteran receiver who should also still be able to help with JSN? I mean, the style of receivers they should be able to complement each other and help each other out in this system, and hopefully be creating for each other so that they both have great opportunities in this system. All right, yeah, so leave that in the comments, and then of course hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you get all these episodes when they come out. And that'll be the end of this episode. So until next time, go Hawks.